Well, greetings to all you at Tweakage from beautiful Georgetown, Kentucky, where I'm spending my senior years. Tweakage is a great opportunity for you folks. I was there when Tweakage began and enjoyed being a part of it. Iron sharpeneth iron, the Bible says, and that's probably the reason that Tweakage continues to exist. It's like-minded people and like-minded ministries sharpening each other to advance the gospel, and that's a real blessing to see that it continues. Randy asked me to share a few words about Junior Missions Outreach Week, and thank you, Randy, for that invite. Junior Missions began early in my time as a director at Camp Chetek. I had just taken a responsibility for the camp directorship and continued in my itinerant evangelistic work, and had started a revival meeting in Gibraltar, Michigan with Pastor Mark Burr one Sunday morning, and Gibraltar's just downriver from Detroit, big city, and Mark asked me about the ministry at Chetek and had a vision for what we wanted to do there, and I shared with him the experiences I had preaching at camps and saw Camp Chetek as an opportunity to use what I call one of the best environments for spiritual growth as an opportunity to make a bigger impact than its history had recorded. A number of camps that I'd preached in, I drew some ideas from and was challenged about, and so I shared with Mark how I thought Camp Chetek could be used to reach beyond the borders of Wisconsin into some of the bigger cities there in the Midwest, and shared some of what I thought we could do. And he asked me to share it that night with his congregation, and so I took the beginning of the service just a couple of minutes to mention the camp ministry, and in particular our desire to reach inner city unchurched young people. Well, later in that week, a pastor called me to his office, and one of the elderly ladies was there, and she shared the story of how her husband had passed away the previous fall, and at his funeral, a lot of people gave honorariums or memorial gifts, and she had been praying daily for several months about what to do with that money. And she said, "This week I got the answer." And she said, "I'd like to give you this money to start Junior Missions Outreach Week." As I recall, it was $2,750. And at that time, that was enough to bring the first 25 campers. And that summer, we awarded that scholarship money to churches in Minneapolis and Milwaukee, and tried to get some even from Chicago. But the churches in Minneapolis, being a little bit closer, really responded well, particularly Gospel Light Baptist Church. And they brought the kids. We ministered a traditional week of camp and found out that wasn't going to work very well. You take an inner city kid that's not been in church and try to sit him in chapel for 45 minutes or an hour, doesn't work very well. Well, in my ministry experience, I had found a curriculum that was used by New Tribes Missions to go into lands where there had been no gospel work, and they'd learn the language, and through a systematic approach to teaching the Bible, they would eventually win people to Christ and begin churches. And so we took kind of that idea and developed a curriculum for Camp Chetek, where rather than sitting in chapel 2 or 3 times a day, we created several different spots around the camp that would be conducive to what seemed to the kids to be an impromptu, "Hey, sit down here for a minute, we want to talk to you," and take an opportunity, maybe somewhere between 8 and 12 minutes, to share a Bible truth. We really started from, in the beginning was God, and went all the way through the resurrection of Jesus Christ So, as I recall, there were like 25 or 26 little sermonettes, you might say. And that's what we did. We really started to have some effect uh, in ministry doing it that way. And junior missions began to thrive. We raised the scholarship money, which was kind of counter to what most camps were doing. They needed to raise money for their own operation, but we raised the scholarship money for the churches. The churches got the kids to camp and then did the follow-up work with families. One of the highlights, and Pastor Randy will maybe expand on this for you because it's a tremendous story, was one of those first years, may have even been the first year. One of the kids that came was a kid named John, and we called him Big John eventually. When John got there, the only thing that he had was literally the clothes on his back. A ragged t-shirt, some cut-off shorts, and as I recall, they were size 11 tennis shoes, but they were on his size 16 foot. Uh, John's mom had sold everything that they possessed that couple of days earlier to get drug money. And it was really a heartbreaking situation. Well, we found John some size 16 Air Jordans up at playing against sports in Rice Lake and got him some clothes at Farm and Fleet, and it really made an impact on him. John got saved that week, and here just I believe it was the fall before last that Pastor Randy sent me a video of John as an adult now talking with Randy in his office there at Camp Chetek. And John's in church bringing kids to camp every year. Just a tremendous testimony. And we thank God for the way that he has used Camp Chetek. Now, the ministry was not without some trials. I'll tell you that. We had a much smaller counselor to camper ratio and tag teamed really in counselor supervision because it was very intense work. Imposing discipline was a real challenge, and one year we ended up with an all-out riot. 7 police cars there to help us contain about 80 kids. It was just amazing. But you know what? It's when you see those young people come to Christ and then year after year come back. John worked with us for several years. It's worth the investment of your life into their life. And realizing that someday in eternity you're going to be able to rejoice with them looking back on these good times. Camp Chetek really was, I would say, greatly blessed because of that work. Word of Junior Missions Outreach Week spread far and wide, and it brought a lot of new interest in the camp. A lot of money that came to support that group. Eventually, we had to limit the number of kids that we could bring there. We had so much scholarship money. It was a real blessing. The other thing that was special about it to me was how it changed our counseling staff. At the time I was there, we would recruit 40 or 50 college-age young people and have at least that many more high school kids doing task force work. And Junior Missions Outreach Week, most of the counselors had never been exposed over long periods of time to inner city kids like that. And their hearts were truly broken to minister to these young people. And I would imagine a reunion of those counselors today and some testimonies from them of how it shaped their life would be such a great blessing. Well, I've taken enough of your time there. I hope that Tweakage is a blessing to you this year. I would encourage you to just keep walking with the Lord. Ask Him to show you how you can use the resources that He has provided for you and for the camp ministry that you're working at. And get creative. Don't get stuck in the old rut of this is what we've always done. Get creative. There's some ways to use the unique environment of Christian camping that are available no other place. And so I hope that Tweakage week here will be an encouragement to you, and that God will richly bless all of you for being there. I can honestly say that sitting here in late February and 60-degree weather in Kentucky is a little different than what my Februarys were living in Chetek. I haven't shoveled snow in a long, long time. So God bless you all. Hope you have a good time.